Kale is dead. The news echoes through the empty halls of my heart, leaving a silence more deafening than any scream. My feet are bare, cut and bruised, but I can't feel the pain, not when the only string of hope I had left has been severed. I mutter his name like a prayer that was never answered. Kale, my favorite, my beloved, my only reason for surviving in this lonely world. My strength fails me. The world tilts as my knees hit the cold, hard ground. I collapse, the weight of the truth crushing the breath from my lungs. No, it wasn't just a simple death. A sudden realization flickers behind my tears, sharp and jagged. Kale didn't just pass away. They killed him. The people he protected, the ones he sacrificed everything for, they are the ones who truly ended his life. I lie there on the floor, shivering from the coldness of this cruel reality. Anger begins to boil beneath my grief. If there is a God in this heartless world, hear me now. If Kale really had to be forsaken like this, if this was the reason I was brought into this world, then I will give up my own life. Just please make my beloved come back to life. My name is Hestia, but this wasn't always my life. I was just an ordinary woman who fell asleep reading my favorite novel. When I opened my eyes, I had become an extra in that very story. Someone so irrelevant she didn't even have a single line of dialogue. Perhaps because she was so unimportant, the author didn't bother giving her a backstory. I woke up as a woman with no family, no connections, yet somehow I was absolutely loaded. Gold, jewels, an endless fortune for no apparent reason. It was baffling. I mean, normally when you transmigrate, you're there to save a life or change the plot, right? But me, I was just a completely irrelevant extra. So I decided to do the only thing that made sense. I used that massive, unexplained fortune to live out every fan's ultimate dream. I spent money like it was water, buying my way into high society just to get a glimpse of the characters I adored. The barkeeps thought I was insane, but I didn't care. I needed an identity, a title, a seat at the table. I became a noble overnight, fueled by nothing but gold and obsession. It was the only way I could ever hope to cross paths with the stars of this world. And then I saw her, Diana, the female lead with hair like pearls and eyes that held the mystery of the ocean. She was breathtaking. Even her simple breaths felt like flecks of gold floating in the air. I was mesmerized. Next to her was Helios, the crown prince, the perfect combination of black hair and golden eyes. He was the author's top character, the ultimate male lead designed to make every reader's heart skip a beat. Seeing them in person was a religious experience. I thanked whatever God brought me here just for this view. But my eyes always wandered to the man standing just a few steps behind them, the one with the ice-cold personality and the burden of making the cruel decisions no one else would touch. He was the sweetest man to the female lead, even though he knew he would never be her first choice. Kalis, the sub-male lead, an icon of unrequited love, destined to be the most unfortunate soul in the universe. To me, he was the most beautiful, perfect soulmate in the entire universe, my absolute favorite. I spent boatloads of money just to be in the same room as him, watching him from the corners of the ballrooms. He was a flawless work of art. Just his presence turned the entire environment into a museum. I was more than satisfied just to see him in person, even if I was too nervous to ever actually approach him. I was just a successful, crazy fangirl, and I was perfectly happy with that. I watched the world flow according to the original plot. Diana, the Saintess, used her healing powers to bring hope to the Empire. And of course, both the prince and his best friend, Kyle, fell hopelessly in love with her. Helios offered her his hand and his kingdom. Kael offered her his silent, unwavering support. They made a perfect work of art just by standing together. But every story needs a villain. Enter Duchess Ratona, the daughter of the most powerful noble in the empire. She plotted to become empress, and to her, a commoner like Diana receiving the prince's love was an unforgivable insult. Ratona was ruthless, her family so powerful even the emperor feared them. The conflict reached a breaking point. Helios was being forced to marry Ratona while the love of his life stood right next to him. Kael couldn't stand to see them suffer. He decided to bear the cross for his beloved woman and his best friend. He used the corruption and sins of Ratona's family against them. He ended the threat permanently by poisoning their tea, forcing them to pay for their crimes with their lives. He did it for her. He did it so Diana could be happy, so Helios could be free. In my wishful thinking, I imagined Diana would understand. I thought she would see the sacrifice he made. Instead, she screamed at him. She called him cruel and manipulative, unable to reconcile his actions with her saintly ideals. She told him she didn't even want to look at his face. With those words, she completely turned her back on him. The rift between them was final. Kael was left in the darkness he had entered just to keep her in the light. According to the original plot, Helios and Diana got married with everyone's blessing. It was the perfect ending. I watched it all from the crowd. The novel had ended normally, and I hadn't changed a single thing. I stood there as an extra, wondering if it was finally time for me to return to my own world. They looked so happy. The prince and his saint finally together, while the rest of the world celebrated. But I couldn't stop thinking about Kael. I sincerely wished for his happiness, even after the story was over. I hoped he would get over his broken heart. I hoped he would live out his own life, away from the shadows of those two. I really wanted to see his face one last time before I left this world behind. I assumed he would keep on living here, finding some peace eventually. That was my hope. But when I finally saw him again, a year after the happily ever after, the man I adored was unrecognizable. The light had completely left his eyes. My beloved, the man who had given everything for a woman who despised him, he wasn't moving forward. He wasn't healing. He was standing right on death's doorstep, and I was the only one there to see him fall. The wedding bells rang, the curtains closed, and the happily ever after was sealed with a kiss for the main leads. The story was over, and the world was supposed to reset. I watched it all as a spectator, a guest in a story that wasn't mine, finally ready to leave this world behind and return to my own reality. I expected to wake up in my own bed, back to the mundane life of a commoner, far away from these paper-thin aristocrats and their drama. Just one more sleep, I told myself, one more dream, and I'd be home with my family, leaving this fictional realm to its perfect ending. But the morning sun didn't bring my bedroom ceiling. It brought the same silk sheets and a crushing realization that I was still here. I tried again and again. Desperation turned into a frantic prayer that went completely unanswered by whatever forces brought me here. One day bled into the next, the silence of the room becoming my only companion as I waited for a departure that wouldn't come. Spring turned to summer, then autumn. The seasons mocked me with their change while I remained frozen in a plot that had already ended. The colors of the world began to fade in my eyes, but the reality of my situation remained stubbornly sharp. A week, then 10 days, then a month. The passage of time became a blur of grief and confusion as I realized I was truly stuck. I was still here, an extra in a world that had no more lines for me to speak. The weight of it finally broke me. I wasn't just a guest anymore. I was a prisoner of a story that had no more pages for me to occupy. A whole year passed. I was the extra character left behind after the leads had their fill of joy and moved on. Why was I left here? The story was over. The heroes were happy. So why was I still breathing this fictional air, doomed to fade away? My wealth and status as Hestia evaporated. I was forced into a life of solitude, hiding away in a small mountain cottage just to survive. I looked at my hands and wondered if I even existed. Is this what happens to the characters the author simply forgets to write about? But then, news reached my doorstep that was worse than any poverty I could endure. It was a headline that shattered what was left of my heart. Kalis, my beloved, pitiful sub-male lead, the man who gave everything to the heroine, was left with nothing but a rope and a broken spirit. While the rest of the world celebrated its peace, he was drowning in the aftermath of a love that had discarded him without a second thought. I had prayed for his happiness more than my own, but the gods of this world are cruel to those who aren't the main protagonists. He lost his will to live. Abandoned by his best friend and the woman he adored, he became a ghost haunting his own mansion. The servants tried to stop him, but how do you save a man who has already died inside several times over? Every time I closed my eyes, I hoped for a different ending. Not for my own sake, but for his. I couldn't bear his suffering. I walked through the woods, my own heart heavy with the same darkness that I knew was consuming him every single day. I screamed at the sky, demanding to know why we were being tortured like this when the story was supposed to be finished. If there was no way back and no way forward, then what was the point of any of this pain? I was ready to let go, to just disappear into the forest and let the world forget me entirely. But then I heard a sound, a footstep on the dry leaves that felt like a sudden heartbeat in the silence. I looked up, tears blurring my vision, and saw a figure that shouldn't have been there. It was him, Kalis, standing there like a vision from a dream I didn't deserve to have. I thought my mind had finally snapped. There was no other explanation for seeing him here, so far from his home. He turned to leave, and I felt a surge of panic. I couldn't let him vanish into the trees again. I reached out, my voice a desperate plea, begging him to stay for just one moment. He looked at me with eyes so hollow, they mirrored the void in my own soul. He was a shell of the man he used to be. Suddenly, voices echoed through the trees. His people were searching for him, calling out his name with worry. He didn't want to be found. He didn't want to be dragged back to a life that offered him nothing but grief. Before I could process it, he pulled me into the shadows, his hand covering my mouth to keep us both hidden. The heat of his breath, the weight of his arm, he was real. My beloved was really here, holding me in the quiet of the forest. I led him back to my small, shabby cottage. It was a far cry from the palaces he was used to, but it was a sanctuary. I felt a sudden, sharp embarrassment. I hadn't cleaned, and I never expected the man of my dreams to walk through my door. He sat in my chair, looking like a fallen god, exhausted and completely broken by the world's expectations. I stood before him, trembling, still unable to fully believe this wasn't another cruel trick of my imagination. He didn't speak at first, just sat there in a heavy, suffocating silence that spoke volumes about his pain. "You said you wanted to disappear," he murmured. His words cut right through me, reaching the part of me that had given up. He saw right through my facade. He knew that I, too, was a soul with a story that could never be told to anyone else. I tried to hold back the tears, but his presence was a catalyst for every bit of pain I'd bottled up for a year. I told him everything, the loneliness, the loss, the feeling of being a ghost in a foreign land with no way home. He listened with a gaze that was both cold and intensely empathetic, as if he recognized every wound I described. We were two sides of the same coin, both abandoned by the heroes of this story once we were no longer useful. He told me I was stronger than him because I still wanted to live, despite having absolutely nothing left. But he didn't understand. I only wanted to live because he was still in this world. He was my only anchor. I looked at him, so thin, so pale. He was wasting away, a victim of a narrative that had no more use for his kindness. He was the sub-male lead, the one meant to suffer so the main characters could shine. It was a role I refused to let him keep. I watched him, my heart aching with a new purpose. I wasn't just a leftover character anymore. I had a reason to stay. I wanted to see him smile again. I wanted to give him a reason to wake up tomorrow and every day after. Wait here, I told him. I'll be right back. I had to do something, anything, to keep him here with me. I left him in the cottage, a flicker of hope finally igniting in my chest after a long year of darkness. I ran to the village, buying food and supplies with what little I had. I would cook for him, care for him, and show him he was precious. I would tell him that even if the world didn't need him, I did. He wasn't alone anymore. But the moment I pushed the door open, the world turned a terrifying shade of red. Kalis? No, please, not again. The silence in the room was deafening. The groceries hit the floor as I saw him lying there, the cold steel of a blade reflecting the light of a life slipping away. I called his name, but the silence that followed was the most terrifying thing I'd ever heard. Was I too late to save him? A single name escapes my lips, trembling and hollow. Kale. No, this can't be real. The air in the cabin is suddenly too heavy to breathe, thick with the scent of iron and a crushing finality. Seeing him like this is a nightmare that refuses to end, even as I reach out to touch the cold reality of his skin. Tears are a poor substitute for the words I never got to say, or for the comfort I failed to provide when he needed it most. Was this the reason I was brought to this world? To watch the most beautiful soul I've ever known flicker out in the dark? A small signed note sits on the table, a final act of kindness from a man who had nothing left for himself. The headlines scream of his death for a fleeting moment, but the world is a cruel place that moves on far too quickly. His sacrifice is buried beneath the latest scandals of the crown prince and his new wife. It's sickening. Their love didn't even last 2 years before it started to rot, yet Kale is the one who paid the ultimate price. My own life became a blur of emptiness and rage, a hollow shell of existence without a single spark of hope. I wandered the temple like a ghost, my mind unraveling alongside my health. Bumping into strangers, hearing their petty complaints, it all felt so insignificant compared to the void in my chest. They whisper behind my back, calling me mindless, pitying a woman they don't even know. They still talk about the Saintess Diana, wondering why she doesn't visit the commoners anymore now that she's a princess. Diana, Helios, the names taste like poison on my tongue. While they played at their happily ever after, Kale was left to drown in his own despair. The weight of it all finally becomes too much to bear, and the world begins to tilt. The reality is a jagged blade in my heart. Kalis is dead. He doesn't exist in this world anymore. No, that's not right. He didn't just die. He was pushed to the edge by the people he trusted most. My hands grip the cold stone floor as the truth boils over. Kale didn't just end his life, they killed him. They tormented him until he saw no other way out. They are the ones with blood on their hands. If there is a God listening to this broken prayer, if there is any justice left in this universe, I would give up everything, my life, my soul, my very existence. Just bring him back to me. A blinding light erupts from the darkness, a silent scream echoed by the heavens. The images of his end flash before my eyes, a cycle of pain that I refuse to accept as the final word. The blood, the silver hair, the cold steel. Please, let me change this. Every memory of him is a treasure I would die to protect. Let me save him. Let me be the one who stays when everyone else walks away. I won't let it end like this. Not again. My eyes snap open, the fire of 1,000 suns burning in my gaze. The silence is different now. It's not the silence of the grave, but the quiet of a room I haven't seen in years. The bed is plush, the ceiling familiar. This is Hestia's room. From before everything fell apart. Did a priest bring me here? No, that's impossible. No one at the temple even knew who I was. I look at my hands, feeling a vitality that had long since withered away. I'm upright, I'm moving, and the crushing headache that defined my days is gone. It feels as though my body has reverted to a time before the grief consumed me. Confusion wars with a desperate rising hope. Could it really be happening? I flex my fingers, testing the reality of this moment. I feel healthy. The air is light, the world is vibrant, and I am alive in a way I haven't been for a lifetime. I rush to the window and see the village decorated with banners. I recognize this sight. The cheers of the crowd, the celebration in the streets, it's the wedding parade. I'm back at the very end of the novel, the night Diana and Helios were wed. The realization hits me like a physical blow. If this is that night, then there's still time. Today is the wedding, and the first day Cowell tries to end his life. I can't waste a single second. I have to get to him. The festive atmosphere outside is a mockery of the tragedy about to unfold. I won't let history repeat itself, not while I still have breath in my body. I remember the faces of those who celebrated while he suffered. Diana, smiling and oblivious. She never even thanked him for everything he sacrificed. She just took and took until there was nothing left. I won't let his devotion be wasted on someone who doesn't deserve it. Today, the story changes. Today, I become the variable they never saw coming. Kyle gave her his everything, and she threw it away like it was nothing. I'll make her realize just how wrong she was. I'll make them all see. I grab the first carriage I can find, my voice sharp with a command that leaves no room for argument. Money is no object. Time is the only currency that matters now. The carriage rattles through the streets as I pray that I'm not too late. I'm not here to reunite him with Diana. That bridge is burned and buried. I'm here for him, only for him. The gates of the Marquise's estate loom ahead, a fortress of solitude and hidden pain. I don't care about decorum or the guards. I'm a woman on a mission. Nothing can stop a fan who has seen her beloved's end and been given the chance to rewrite it. I'll run until my lungs burn, as long as it brings me to his side. The guards shout, but they are just shadows in my path. My eyes are fixed on the balcony, on the room where I know he's waiting for the end. A quick distraction is all I need to slip past them. I'm a blur of red silk and desperation, charging through the halls of a house that feels like a tomb. The servants gasp, but I don't stop. I know exactly where he is. Second floor, the door at the end of the hall. That's where his heart is breaking. I throw the doors open with a force that echoes through the silent mansion. There he is, standing by the window, the moonlight catching the silver of his hair and the glint of a dagger. He looks at me with eyes full of a beautiful, terrifying emptiness. "Who are you?" he asks. I can't help the sob that catches in my throat. He's alive. He's really alive. I have to act now. I have to give him a reason to put that blade down. I lunge forward, my heart hammering against my ribs, fueled by a love that has survived death itself. I tackle him, the dagger clattering to the floor as we crash into the boards together. He's shocked, gasping for air, but all I can feel is the warmth of his body and the beat of his heart. I look him in the eye and make the only vow that matters. My name is Hestia, and I've come to be your Marchioness. I will do whatever it takes to save you. Euros has been the pillar of this estate since the previous Marquis's time, a man of unwavering loyalty and quiet observation. He watched Kalis grow from a boy into a man, serving as a surrogate father until his master took his rightful place at the head of the house. But ever since those he trusted most turned their backs on him, the Marquis has become a ghost in his own home, leaving his duties and his life in shambles. Euros expected a slow recovery, perhaps a long period of mourning. He never expected a strange woman to crash through the doors and tackle his master to the floor. His mind is reeling. Between an unkept bedroom, a suicidal master, and this sudden violent intervention, the butler's world has been turned upside down. And then, the impossible happened. Right there, on the floor of the room he just tried to end his life in, she proposed. Hestia knows how insane she looks. Her heart is hammering against her ribs, the adrenaline of the rescue still coursing through her veins. She really did it. She threw away every ounce of common sense and decorum for the sake of a man who doesn't even know her name. Her conscience screams at her. Who cares about the original plot anymore? Who cares about being a background character when the hero is bleeding out? She has to change the ending. She can't let him die like a forgotten footnote in a story that favored everyone but him. It's a desperate gamble, a chaotic leap of faith into a role she was never meant to play. Kalis remains silent, his silver hair veiling his face as he processes the absurdity of her words. Hestia waits for the rejection, for the anger, or for Euros to finally drag her out by her hair. She braces herself for the fallout, her mind already spinning with backup plans that all feel equally impossible. She stammers, trying to find a way to walk back the sheer intensity of her demand, her hands waving dismissively as she feels the weight of his gaze. Then, a sound breaks the tension, a laugh. It isn't a sound of joy, but a hollow, jagged thing that cuts through the room. Kalis looks up, his eyes dark and empty. He sees himself as a man with no value, a discarded piece on a board that's already been cleared. Hestia flinches. She wanted to save him, not mock him, but his self-loathing is so deep that he interprets her proposal as a joke at his expense. She tries to protest, to tell him she's serious, but the words die in her throat when he speaks. He gives her a look of utter indifference. "Do as you wish," he says. The 4 words hit her like a physical blow. The shock is paralyzing. He didn't just agree, he surrendered. He's so far gone that he doesn't even care who marries him anymore. Kalis simply turns away, leaving the logistics to his butler as if he's ordering a new piece of furniture instead of taking a wife. Euros stands frozen, clutching the dagger he managed to snatch away, staring at the closed doors in disbelief. Hestia is left alone with the butler, her mind screaming. She got what she wanted, but the cost was seeing the true depth of Kalis's despair. She takes a breath and tries to regain her composure. She isn't just a fan anymore. She's a noblewoman with a title to uphold. Euros invites her to sit, his professional mask sliding back into place, though his eyes remain sharp and questioning. He begins the interrogation with a polite veneer, asking for her forgiveness if his upcoming questions seem rude. He wastes no time listing her offenses: trespassing, assaulting the staff, and physically tackling the Marquis. Hestia winces as he recounts the body slam. It sounds much worse when a professional butler describes it. The weight of her actions starts to sink in. She really did make a mess of things, even if her intentions were pure. She tries to look small, hoping he won't call the authorities before she can explain herself. But then, Euros's tone shifts. He admits that if it hadn't been for her, the Marquis wouldn't be alive at all. He bows deeply, a gesture of profound gratitude from a man who thought he was about to bury his master. Hestia feels a pang of guilt. She knows Euros was the only one who truly tried to protect Kalis in the original story. But the butler is no fool. He notes that she seemed to know exactly what Kalis was about to do before she even entered the room. He needs to know how. How could a stranger see through the walls of a locked estate and anticipate a suicide attempt? Hestia panics. She can't exactly tell him she read it all in a web novel and reincarnated into this world. Her internal monologue is a mess of frantic excuses, each one sounding more insane than the last. She looks at Euros, searching for a way to bridge the gap between truth and fiction. She decides to lean into the logic of this world. In a fantasy novel, extraordinary powers are the only currency that matters. She takes a breath and hardens her gaze. She has to convince him she's an asset, not an intruder. Euros waits, his skepticism practically radiating off him. He's seen many things, but he doesn't believe in coincidences. "I have the ability to see the future," she declares, putting every ounce of conviction into her voice. It's a bold claim, one that marks her transition from a mere extra to a central player in this tragedy. She watches for his reaction, her hands trembling slightly in her lap as she waits for the verdict. Euros doesn't buy it. His face darkens, clearly suspecting she's just another charlatan trying to take advantage of a broken man. She needs a specific detail, something only he and Kalis could possibly know, something that proves her vision. "The pink diamond," she says. The words act like a physical barrier, stopping Euros in his tracks. She describes the jewel Kalis bought for the Saintess, the one he never got to give her because of the betrayal. She tells him exactly where it is, the third drawer of the desk in his office, a secret buried in mahogany and regret. Euros is speechless. His professional composure finally breaks, replaced by a look of genuine shock. He wonders how she could possibly know that. It was a private matter, handled in total secrecy. Hestia offers a small, knowing smile. The proof is undeniable. She has his attention now. She explains her mission. Kalis will continue to try and end his life, and she is the only one who can see the threats before they happen. She demands the authority to stay by his side. To save him, she needs the power that only a marchioness holds. Euros listens, his expression softening as he realizes she isn't seeking wealth or status, but a way to keep his master alive. She promises she has no intention of being the true lady of the house. She will sign any contract, any agreement to prove her sincerity. She stands amidst the opulence of the estate, a woman who only wants to protect its dying heart. "I will not cause him any harm," she vows. Her words are simple, but they carry the weight of a lifetime of devotion. Euros considers her offer. He is a man of logic, but he is also a man of desperation. He has no other options. He admits he doesn't have the authority to finalize a marriage, but he's willing to let her stay the night. Hestia beams with relief. It's the first step, a tiny foothold in a mountain of grief. Euros bows once more, signaling the end of their meeting and the beginning of a strange, tentative alliance. Left alone in the guest room, Hestia finally lets out the breath she's been holding. She made it through the first night. But as the house settles into a heavy silence, The man she's trying to save remains lost in the dark. Kalis stares out of his window, his reflection ghostly against the night sky, his mind still trapped in the past. He whispers a name into the cold air, Diana, the woman who broke him, the woman he still can't forget. Hestia watches from afar, her determination renewed. She will make him live again, even if she has to drag him back from the brink every single day. The story has changed. The background character is now the lead, and she isn't going anywhere. Kalis closes his eyes, oblivious to the war being fought for his soul, still drowning in the memories of a Saintess. The night is long, and the path to healing is steep, but for the first time since the story ended, there is a flicker of hope in the dark. My inner voice is having a field day. I can hardly believe the words that actually came out of my mouth last night. Was I bold or just completely impulsive? My conscience is practically screaming at me for being so reckless. Marriage is a life-altering decision, and here I am, treating it like a casual suggestion. I really need to get a grip on reality. But then again, this world started as a novel to me. If I've already set the wheels in motion, there's no point in second-guessing now. My original plan was so much safer. I was going to be his assistant, or maybe a secretary, something discreet. Instead, I went for the throat and asked to be his wife. It's absolute madness, but I can't take it back. I realized the second I looked into his eyes that a simple working relationship wouldn't save him. Those tormented, empty eyes needed something more. I acted on instinct, pretending to see a future that only I know because I read the story. I'll play any part if it means saving him. If being a prophetess is what it takes to stay by his side and keep him alive, then that's who I'll become. But as I drift through this strange dreamscape, a voice echoes back to me, following my decision. They say they are always with me, a collective we that feels both comforting and deeply mysterious. Who exactly are they? The creators of this world, or something else entirely? The question lingers as the light of the morning finally pulls me back to the waking world. I wake up in a room far more luxurious than any I've ever known, the weight of yesterday's events settling back onto my shoulders. A long, deep stretch helps shake off the lingering fog of that bizarre dream. It felt so real, yet so distant. I suppose that's just the nature of my life now, living a dream that's become a reality. Euros, the Marquis's loyal butler, greets me with a professional yet curious gaze. He's checking to see if I've regained my senses. I assure him I slept well, better than I have in a long time, despite the weight of the proposal hanging over us. He notes my composure. He thinks I'm relaxed because I can see the future, but the truth is, I'm just desperately trying to hold it together. My first thought is for the Marquis. How is he doing this morning? Is he any closer to the edge? Euros mentions that Kalis seems more stable today, which is a massive relief. But then he tests me. He asks why my future sight didn't tell me that. I have to scramble, explaining that I only see the major turning points, not the daily mundane details. He's joking, but my heart nearly stops. I can't afford to let my guard down around a man as sharp as him. Still, he seems to be warming up to me. He acknowledges that, regardless of how I did it, I saved his master's life. He calls me Lady Hestia now. The transition from stranger to potential mistress of the house is happening faster than I expected. He's even prepared the legal documents already. The man worked through the night because of my impulsive demand. I feel a pang of modern guilt. I really hate making people work overtime on my account. He stops to give me a final piece of advice. Kalis might be stable, but he's still a shadow of himself. He worries if a proper conversation is even possible. I know Kalis is hurting, but I'm prepared for his silence. I offer a small suggestion. Fruit punch spiked with brandy. It's a specific preference of his that only a true fan or a prophetess would know. Euros is visibly shaken by my knowledge. Step by step, I'm proving that I belong here, that I know his master better than anyone. Now comes the hard part. I have to face the man I vowed to save, even if he doesn't want to be saved.
The doors open, and the atmosphere in the room is heavy with a silence that feels like it could suffocate you. There he is, Kalis. He looks so fragile, like a beautiful statue that's been cracked and left to weather in the dark. My heart sinks. No matter how many times I see him like this, the pain of his despair hits me like a physical blow. The memory of that night, of finding him on the floor, the cold reality of his attempt to leave this world, flashes before my eyes. I bite my lip, fighting back the urge to cry. I can't be weak now. He needs someone strong. I didn't come this far to let him slip away. I force a bright, cheerful greeting into the room, determined to break through his gloom. He just sighs, a sound so weary it breaks my heart all over again. Uros tries to maintain decorum, but the tension is palpable. I'm fuming internally. How can he just give up like this? But I have to be patient. I have to be his anchor. Euros presents the documents. 2 copies of a contract that will bind our lives together in a way neither of us ever imagined. I scan the pages. It details everything. My authority as the Marchioness, the power I'll hold over the estate. It's a position of incredible influence. I could wield the same power as Kalis himself, as long as I act in the interest of the house. Euros is thorough. He's included clauses for every eventuality, proving just how capable and protective he is of his master. But there's one section I won't accept. I don't want his money. I'm not here to profit from his tragedy. I tell them plainly, strike the financial terms. I am not a con artist, and I won't have anyone thinking I'm here for his gold. Euros is stunned, but Kalis, he doesn't even hesitate. He reaches for the pen, his movements robotic and detached. He's signing it. He's actually signing a marriage contract without even bothering to read the changes. We're both in shock. It's a contract that hasn't even been finalized, yet he's putting his name to it as if it means nothing. He just wants us to leave. He doesn't care about his fortune, his power, or his future. He just wants the silence back. I look at him, sitting there in his despair, and I feel a surge of fierce protectiveness. It's those eyes that have seen too much betrayal and not enough love. I can't let him stay in this darkness. I will change this. I have to. I clutch the fabric of my dress, my hands trembling with a mix of anger and resolve. I won't let his signature be a death warrant. I promise him, right then and there, that he will not regret this. Even if he can't hear me, I'm making a vow to the universe. I offer a small, determined smile. This is the beginning of his salvation, whether he knows it yet or not. I take my leave with a grace I didn't know I possessed, the weight of the signed contract heavy in my hand. I am his wife now, legally if not in spirit, and I have work to do. He tells me to get out, his voice a low rasp that speaks of a soul that's already departed. I walk out of that room with Uros, the heavy doors closing behind us like a seal on the first chapter of our new life. Uros looks exhausted, overwhelmed by his master's apathy. He says he needs to go to the temple to pray for guidance. I can't help but smirk. The temple? That's the last place that will help us now. I have a different plan. I'm going to retrieve everything that was stolen from Kalis, his pride, his joy, his life, and I'm going to start with the woman who broke him, the Saintess who abandoned her most loyal friend for a crown. Diana. She thinks she's won her happily ever after, leaving a trail of destruction in her wake. She has no idea what's coming for her. I'm not a character in her story anymore. I'm the narrator of her downfall.
The game has changed, Diana, and this time, I'm the one holding all the cards.